But first, before I do that, I need an actual accurate representation of this plan. What does it actually look like? So I'm going to copy these posts, and I'm just going to create a window around those two and a window around those two. And I'm going to move them down below the image. Don't worry about there, it doesn't matter at this point. And I have to decide which way my lintels are going to go and which way the joists are going to go in this example. And here I want the lintels to run the short direction and the joists to run the long direction. So I don't need that beam indicator right now. I can run my joists, and the joists will have a 2-foot offset from the center of the image. So the easiest thing I can do is this. I'm going to go to my Pergola layer. So I'll make that layer current. Pergola layer, make current. I don't know why it's not doing it. I'm just going to go this way. There we go. Now it's current. And I'll use the rectangle command, and I'll go right from the center of the post to the center of the post. And because I've rotated, it's now a perfect rectangle. And I'm going to offset that 2 feet, so 24 inches. There is the outer edges of all my joists that I'm going to have, both the ceiling joists and the 2 lintels. Okay, let's remove that. Now I'm going to draw the actual lintels first, and the lintels will go in the horizontal position. So I'll draw a line, and I'll bring it right to the outer edge because it goes the full length of the 2-foot offset. And I'll extend this line to there. And each framing member is 1.5 inches. So I'll offset that by 1.5, or another 2 by 6, 8, 10, or 12. And I'm going to use that detail where the joist is inset into the post. It's a better detail to use. So this is the way I draw it. So now I'm going to copy this from the outer edge to there. And there is my lintel. Now, I'm going to do the same down below, but rather than draw it all, I'll simply copy this from the center down to the center. And there I have my lintel. Now, what about my joists? I want to have a similar look to this in the other direction. So I will copy this from this position back to its same position. Now, what did I do? I've got 2 layers of these lines on top of each other. Now I'm going to rotate, and in order to pick what I just did, I type in P and enter for previous. And it's only going to take the top lines as opposed to the bottom, and my selection, click on the center, and move in the vertical direction. And see what it did? It didn't take all the lines, it only took the previously selected lines. Now this direction is shorter, and it looks like there's a bit of a variation. I'm going to take a look at that as we move through this, and it happens. It just may mean that when I drew this originally, some of the line work was slightly out. Let's see where that variation is. So now I'm going to copy all of this from that center position to that center position. And see, this is all okay. That post was slightly out. So let's move this over. And this is the drawing that they're going to be going with. So I want to make sure I put it in the right position. And I'll pick it up in the middle, and then I'll just say mid between 2 points, and then it should be between that and that. There we go. Now it's perfect. We always make the corrections when it's necessary. All right, so how does this thing actually look? So I want 16-inch centers between all the posts. So the first thing I'm going to do is, there's multiple ways of doing this, but I'm going to use offset and 16. And I'm going to go outer edge to outer edge, outer edge to outer edge. There I have it. And then I will copy this there, to there, to there, to approximately where I think the middle is, which looks to me about there. Okay, let's just verify the distance dimension. From there to there should be 16, which is 12 plus 4, 16. Good. Now I can mirror all this. So I'll mirror this from the midpoint. Yeah. And that's the look I'm going to have. So the two middle pieces are going to be closer, and everything else is going to be at 16-inch centers. That's the look I want. So if that's the look I want, that's the one I'm going to keep as part of my project, and I'm happy with it. So there's basically my layout. I'm going to put it in a viewport, dimension it, and I work with that. That's simple to do. And I'm also going to have my other view, which is my posts in, or the lintels in the other directions. And you really can't tell too much different from this. But how can I simply put this diagram here? Well, let's do the same sort of thing where I'm going to take the outer edges and provide some construction lines. Some of this may interfere, so I don't want to have that there right now. And I'll delete that. I know some of this line work in here will interfere, but we'll change that in a couple of minutes. I'm going to copy this drawing, and I'm going to move it over and rotate it. So I'm going to move it from position to position, and then I'm going to rotate it, and I'll rotate it around the middle between 2 points. So I'll pick opposite ends. And there I have a 90 degree rotation. It shows 270, the same thing in this particular case. And then I simply move this over from there to there. Now, if I did everything right, everything should line up. So remember, one of these posts was slightly out based on the drawing above, but now I've got the lintel in the other direction. So from here, I basically have my two top views drawn. Now, in order to create the elevations, I need to refer back to my sketch to determine heights. How tall is this pergola going to be? So first of all, I'm going to move to my actual drawing of the house elevation to determine the heights of the deck. And what typically you do is this first step from a house to the top of the deck should be 6 inches. It's mandatory by code. So this is my blue deck, and the step between deck heights, I'm going to make 7.25. So this line here actually represents my second deck, or my lower deck. So I'm going to turn that on. There's deck number 2. Good. And I'm going to make this deck number 2, which is the magenta color. Great. So how does this actually look? I mean, I can go up here and take a look at deck number 1, deck number 2. I'm going to go into my L2 drawing, turn all those layers back on so I can get a better perception of my drawings that I've been working on here. I can leave that off or on, it doesn't matter. And you can see that part of my pergola is on the upper deck, the blue deck, and part of it's on the lower. I want my pergola to have a clear 8 feet between the upper deck, the higher one, and the actual lintel. So I'm going to go back in the model space, and there are my two lines, my upper deck, my lower deck. And I've used construction lines so they continue right across this whole project. And from here, I'm going to now draw the elevation. So I'm going to use offset and 8 feet. And you can make it 8, 9, 10 starts getting a bit high. And there is my height between the blue line, and the blue line is 8 feet. So I'm ready to draw my side view of this. So the first thing is that the lintel height is that 8-view height, or 8-foot height, sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that. Now, what are the lintels? The lintels are these two members here. So what I'll simply do is copy these two and my posts. Now notice how this one has a column it's already sitting on. I'm going to leave that for now, just as a reminder what it is. And I'm going to slide that straight down here. And I now have a reference to my lintel height. So I'm going to draw everything right now as rectangles and then fix them all up at a later time. So here I have my heights for the two of them. And I can do this. And what I'm going to do is determine the height of the lintel. When I looked at my tables, my charts, they were 2x10s. So that's 9.25. And that's from here to here. And then the actual pergola lintel extends from there to there. So the end cut details I'm going to show at a later time. This is a structural member of the pergola. So I'm going to change its layer here to pergola. Now, anything to do with the pergola, I start with the word pergola just so that it was always grouped together. And now I can do my trimming. Let me do that again. Sometimes because I am running several programs at the same time, it has some challenges, but that's okay. And that is the side view of the actual lintel that's coming down. Now I'm going to draw the end views. The end views, I'm going to use the information I have here. Forgot to mention, in my particular case, what I'm going to do is have a 2-inch recess or notch in the actual ceiling joist. So I'm going to offset this now 2 inches. So I know how far down to bring these. And all I'm going to do here is copy all of this from endpoint down to this 2-inch location. Now, my ceiling joists, I'm just taking a reference look at my drawings here. My ceiling joists, I calculated them to be 2x8s. So I'm going to offset 7.25. This lower line up. And I've got my ceiling joists. You may not see them, but they're there. So let's trim away here. I'm just going to pick everything here and everything here. And I'm going to get rid of all these. And I'm going to get rid of all these in between. And that way, my joists line up. There we go. And same with the bottom. So there is my notch. Now, typically, I would leave it at this point, even though there's an extra line there. In section, this would be correct, but in elevation, it's not. We actually don't see these lines because those lines, when we're looking at the end of each of these ceiling joist members, we don't see the lintel go through it because it extends or overhangs. So I'm going to remove each one of these just so that we have them properly in place. There we go. And what else do I have here? That's my deck height there. So I'm going to extend some lines because I know the posts saddle this. So I'm just going to draw them like this for now. They saddle this ceiling joist, and then up here, I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to notch it or show it. I may just show it a little bit above, just so that it has some sort of decorative element to it. This is eventually just going to be hidden lines in through here. I just use the joist as my outside saddle dimension. So I actually don't see that post. Those are going to be hidden lines eventually. Then I get to decide what am I going to do up here. I'm just going to have a 1-inch offset so that the post extends above. I can see it, but it's not something that is going to be overly dramatic. And I'm just using fillet to show that. There we go. and then I'll just copy all of this that I've drawn. I'll do it all in one shot and just pick the same base point on each location. And there I have part of my elevation. Now my deck consists of a couple things. First of all, the deck boards themselves. And I'm showing the overall height. So the deck boards actually will contribute to the thickness of here. And they're going to be 5/4 boards. So 5/4. That's the thickness of my board down and the thickness of my board down. Okay, so there are the two decks that it's going to be going through. And in this particular direction, what else do I see? I will see the brace. So I'm going to have to design the brace and put it in here. I'm also going to see the cuts of these outer edges. So all of that is going to be coming up very shortly. But for now, there is my elevation of the deck in this direction. And I can do the same in the opposite direction as well. But what you're going to see is different because the lintels now you're going to see the ends, and the actual ceiling joist you're now going to see the top view. Okay, so I'm going to copy, just like it did before, all of this information. I got an extra joist in there I don't need. And this down, just so it's closer to my project. There we go. Now I have all my heights that I want. So rather than redraw a lot of this information, what I'm going to do is copy that, this, the height of the post cap. I think I got everything. Okay. And slide that over. Make sure your F8 is on. There's all the information, but you got to keep it straight in your head what you're actually seeing. So what I have in here is now I'm looking at the lintel straight on. That's the lower line. That's the flat view of it. Now I'm looking at the vertical view of it. So I'm going to extend to here. These are my lintels. Okay. What heights are they? Well, as I mentioned to you earlier, these things are 9¼ inches. So offset 9.25. And look, it lined up with the line that I had drawn earlier. In fact, I can over trace it and you can see it. It worked out perfectly. Okay, so that confirms that I've drawn this correctly. What about the actual joists that I have here? Now, they run in the opposite direction that I've shown here. So I have the right height, but I don't have the right length. There's the right length. Good. Okay, so I'm going to copy this line from, I'm going to pick a point closer to that. And now I can hit perpendicular here. And I can hit perpendicular here. Now why did I do that? Because those two are the right length. That's really what's important. They're the right length. And they actually sit inside of my lintel. So now with this layout here, there is my lintel. These are my ceiling joists. My lintel I see straight on. My ceiling joists, I'm going to see the side of. So I have to trim, and hopefully this becomes all a bit more apparent as I do this. Sorry, trim, select everything, and I'll get rid of all this extra line work. I don't need that. I don't need that, nor this, nor that. See, that's the way it's going to sit. This upper piece, which is the ceiling joist, is notched to fit my posts. Sorry, the upper joist is notched to fit in around the lintel. Okay, so I'm going to do the same at the other end of this. Let's select trim, and I just pick everything. Now I'm also going to pick these lines here, so I don't lose some of the lines that I need. Okay, I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that. Those are gone. These two are gone. Great. I don't need this bottom chord, this, and those links are right. I'm just going to leave them the way they are for now. So there was my ceiling joist looking at me in the other elevation, in this elevation here. And now I see the side of it. And these are my two lintels that I saw the side of, that now I see straight on. Okay, so let's get rid of some of this other stuff that I don't need. I don't need any of these. That's my post height. So I'm going to fill it. This to this, and that to that. And I don't need, because I can't see it, that nor this. That's all I'm going to see above my ceiling joist. And then I'm going to copy this. Same point distance, same point distance. Great. And now I can fill in the rest just like I have here. I can copy the posts. I'm going to pick the same point on each of these. I guess I picked that point. Yeah, I did. There we go. So now I've got basically the elevations drawn from the two views. So I have the lintel in my left view, the side of the lintel, and therefore I see the flat with the joists. I see the ends above. In the other view, what do I see? I see only the ends of the lintel and then the flat of the ceiling joist above. And that all lines up, and that's what it should do, is line up. And basically I've got the upper half of my elevation drawn except for the end cuts.